The chamber of the Zovari High Command was vast, its vaulted ceiling lined with luminous data streams that pulsed with the rhythmic precision of a living organism. Lord Admiral Kalos sat at the head of the War Council, his taloned fingers steepled before him, his amber eyes, sharp with centuries of military conquest, flickered with mild amusement as the human's transmission crackled to life. The image of Captain Elias Mercer stood rigid before them, his face carved in stone, his blue UEDF uniform pristine against the dark void of the hollow projection. "This is your final warning," Mercer said, his voice steady and without flourish. "Withdraw your fleet from Omega 9. We will not offer another." A short silence followed. Then, from Kalos's left, General Tyron Vex let out a low chuckle. His scarred visage twisted into something between amusement and contempt as he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed over his broad chest. The Zovari warlord had crushed more rebellions than most living beings had seen battle, and he found humanity's bravado particularly tiresome. "And if we refuse?" Vex's voice was a deep, guttural rasp. "Will humanity unleash its mighty war machine upon us?" His smirk widened, revealing rows of serrated teeth. "Your people barely qualify as a species, let alone an empire." Mercer did not blink. His stillness alone was a provocation. "You misunderstand us, General," he said. "We are not threatening you. We are warning you." Kalos allowed the words to hang in the air before leaning forward slightly, his long cloak shifting over his ceremonial armor. "Omega 9 is unclaimed space," he said smoothly. "The Dominion does not recognize human sovereignty over it. You are in no position to make demands." "It is not unclaimed," Mercer countered. "It is restricted." Vex barked a laugh. "Restricted by whom?" "Earth. You lack the strength to hold it, and now you cower behind empty warnings." Mercer exhaled slowly, as though speaking to a child. "You believe we fear you. That is your first mistake. Your second will be stepping into that sector." Kalos tilted his head slightly, studying the human with something approaching curiosity. He had seen 1,000 species plead, threaten, and posture before the Dominion, but there was something different about Mercer, something measured. It was not arrogance. It was certainty. Vex was unimpressed. He rose from his seat, his imposing frame casting a long shadow across the chamber. "Enough of this." He turned to Kalos. "Let us proceed. Their fleets are a fraction of our own, their technology centuries behind. We will break their defenses before they even realize we've arrived." Kalos made no move to counter him. The decision had already been made before this transmission began. He tapped the command into the hollow interface, and Mercer's image began to flicker. "You're making a mistake," the human said. Kalos smiled. "Perhaps, but not today." The transmission cut out, leaving only the war map between them. The Dominion fleet, 200 warships strong, continued its course toward Omega 9, an unrelenting tide of destruction. Kalos turned to his officers. "Proceed as planned." The chamber was already alive with movement. Tactical projections shifted. Commanders relayed orders to their fleets, and Vex grinned, eager for another campaign to carve into his legacy. Across the stars, humanity waited. The Dominion fleet emerged from the void, a vast formation of warships sliding into the cold abyss of Omega 9. The lead vessel, Imperator's Wrath, was a city of steel and weaponry, its jagged hull reflecting the distant light of a dying star. General Tyron Vex stood on the bridge, arms clasped behind his back, eyes locked on the expanse before them. There was nothing, no human fleet, no orbital defenses, no resistance of any kind. The sector stretched out before them, empty save for the drifting carcasses of ancient stations and the distant glow of shattered asteroids. Vex exhaled sharply through his nostrils, unimpressed. "Scans?" he demanded. Commander Edric Voss, his second-in-command, studied the sensor display. A thin crease formed between his brows. Minimal energy signatures. Some debris fields showing metallic composition, but no active vessels. Vex allowed himself a smirk. They ran Voss hesitated. Possibly, but this sector was designated restricted. If they truly intended to defend it, why leave it so exposed? Vex dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. They heard our fleet was coming and scattered like vermin. Their warning was a bluff, and now we carved their claim from the stars. The fleet continued forward, engines humming as they advanced deeper into the sector. Vast battlecruisers flanked by destroyers and agile corvettes formed an unbreakable wall of firepower. Squadrons of fighters patrolled the perimeter, scanning the wreckage for any sign of human presence. "Deploy recon units," Vex ordered. "Confirm their absence before we claim the sector." Voss relayed the command, and within minutes, sleek drones darted from the fleet, weaving through the silent ruins. Their sensor sweeps returned the same readings. No active threats, only dead metal and the echoes of long-forgotten battles. Yet something felt off. Voss frowned at his display. The debris field was denser than expected, vast clouds of twisted hull plating and scorched framework. Some of it was ancient, wreckage from battles lost to time. But other fragments seemed too fresh, their edges still sharp, their surfaces unmarked by cosmic erosion. "General," he said carefully, "some of this debris doesn't match known records. It wasn't here in previous scans." Vex sighed. "Speak plainly, Commander." Voss straightened. "Something destroyed these ships recently, and whatever did it isn't here now." The words barely settled before the first alert flashed across the bridge. "New contacts." A sensor officer's voice cut through the quiet. "Multiple energy signatures, highly localized. They just appeared inside the debris field." Vex smirk faltered. "Appeared?" A heartbeat later, the holomap flared to life, marking dozens, no, hundreds, of vessels emerging from the wreckage. They had not warped in. They had been there the entire time, hidden, waiting. A realization struck Voss with icy clarity. They masked their signatures. Their ships were inside the debris field all along. The Dominion fleet had not entered an abandoned battlefield. They had walked into an ambush. Before Vex could bark an order, the first human warships broke formation, their dark hulls cutting through the wreckage like predators slipping from the shadows. Railgun batteries ignited in rapid succession, streaks of hypervelocity, rounds tearing through the void. The Dominion fleet never had a chance. The lead cruiser, Ironfang, took the first hit. A tungsten round the size of a dropship tore through its shields as if they were mist, carving through the vessel's reinforced plating and detonating deep within its core. A silent explosion blossomed in the vacuum, and the once mighty warship split apart, its fractured remains joining the very debris that had hidden its killers. Shock rippled across the Dominion fleet. Vex's voice roared through the comms. "Shields up! Return fire! Destroy them!" But it was chaos. More human ships surged from the wreckage, weaving effortlessly through the battlefield. Their movements were impossibly precise, their coordination unnerving. Dominion gunners struggled to track them, their targeting systems scrambling against unknown interference. "Jamming detected," a lieutenant shouted. "We're losing target locks." On screen, the Dominion battle formation collapsed. More warships fell, their hulls punctured by railgun fire or gutted by unseen weapons. The humans were not fighting a battle. They were executing a slaughter. Vex gritted his teeth, fury burning through his veins. "All ships break formation. We need distance." Voss barely heard the command. His gaze was fixed on a single, terrible truth. Mercer had warned them, not with bravado, not with empty threats, but with a certainty that now made perfect sense. The humans had never feared them. They had been waiting. The bridge of Imperator's wrath was in chaos. The once unshakable Dominion fleet, 200 warships strong, was now a battlefield of fire and wreckage. Explosions bloomed in the void, silent but absolute, as Dominion vessels crumbled under the relentless assault. General Tyron Vex gripped the command railing, his sharp teeth clenched as another Dominion battleship was torn apart by human firepower. The human strategy had been flawless, the perfect ambush, executed with brutal efficiency. Their fleet had hidden within the debris field, using the wreckage as both cover and a tactical advantage. The Dominion fleet had walked into a kill zone, and now they were paying the price. "Shields are failing across the formation," a tactical officer shouted over the alarms. "Our weapons can't lock onto their ships. Targeting interference is intensifying." "Then fire blind if you have to," Vex roared. The Dominion ships unleashed their full arsenal. Plasma cannons blazed, missile salvos streaked through the void, and energy lances tore through space. But the humans were too fast. Their ships darted between the wreckage, using the debris as cover, their movements impossibly precise. They wove through the battlefield with a level of control that defied expectation, while Dominion gunners struggled to even track them. Lord Admiral Kalos watched from his command throne, his expression unreadable. Unlike Vex, he did not rage against the tide turning against them. He merely observed, his mind working through the implications of what he was witnessing. "General," Kalos said, his voice cutting through the noise, "this is not merely superior strategy. This is superior technology." Vex turned, fury in his eyes. "Their ships are smaller, weaker. We outgun them 100 to 1, and yet they are winning." Kalos gestured to the tactical display. Dominion ships were falling like dominoes, their shields overwhelmed, their hulls punctured by weapons they did not fully understand. The humans' railguns fired at velocities that made energy shielding nearly useless. Their jamming technology rendered targeting systems ineffective, and their coordination was unlike anything Kalos had ever seen. For the first time in his long career, he saw something more than just a battle. He saw a turning point. "General," Kalos said, his voice calm but firm, "we are witnessing the end of the old ways." Vex bristled. "You would have us retreat. I would have us survive." But Vex was not listening. His bloodlust burned too hot, his pride too wounded. He slammed his fist onto the command console. "All ships, concentrate fire on the largest human vessel. I want them crushed." The Dominion warships adjusted their assault, pouring firepower into what appeared to be the humans' command ship. Missiles streaked toward it. Plasma bolts arced across the void, but then in a single, breathtaking moment, the human ship vanished. It did not warp. It did not accelerate beyond detection. It simply disappeared, as though it had never been there. Vex's rage turned to confusion. "What?" Then the ship reappeared, this time behind the Dominion battle line. It had bypassed their entire fleet in an instant, and then the slaughter truly began. The ship unleashed devastation. Its weapons fired with pinpoint precision, striking engines, severing command centers, disabling shields before Dominion ships even realized they were under attack. Whatever technology allowed it to disappear and reappear defied all known physics. It was beyond Dominion understanding. Kalos exhaled slowly. "This is no mere engagement, General. This is a demonstration." Vex refused to accept it. He barked orders, demanded countermeasures. But the truth was undeniable. The Dominion was being systematically dismantled. The battle had already been decided. Kalos rose from his seat. His golden eyes, so often filled with cold confidence, held something unfamiliar. Recognition. "The age of the Dominion is over," he murmured. Vex did not hear him. He was too busy watching his fleet die. The Dominion fleet was dying. What had begun as an invasion had become a massacre. Wreckage drifted in all directions, the shattered remains of warships that had once been the pride of an empire. The battlefield was no longer a formation of disciplined military might, but a graveyard of smoldering debris. Bodies, frozen in the vacuum, tumbled alongside ruined vessels, their armor useless against the merciless silence of space. On the bridge of Imperator's Wrath, General Tyron Vex watched as another Dominion dreadnought exploded under human fire. His claws dug into the command railing, his breathing ragged with fury. The humans had outmaneuvered them, outgunned them, outthought them. He could see it now, could feel it in the way his fleet crumbled. But he would not surrender. He could not. "Order the remaining ships to form a defensive perimeter," he barked. "Focus fire on their command vessels." "General," Commander Voss hesitated, sweat beating at his temple. "We've lost nearly 70% of the fleet. We can, Vex snarled. "We will." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. The humans had not just come to win a battle. They had come to make a statement, a warning. The Dominion had always believed itself invincible, its fleets unmatched, its rule unchallenged. They had crushed species beneath their heel for generations, reducing civilizations to little more than servitude. And yet here, in the cold void of Omega 9, they had met something beyond conquest, something ruthless, something precise, a force that did not seek glory, only finality. Aboard the Imperator's Wrath, Lord Admiral Kalos watched in silence. He had not moved, had not issued commands beyond the necessary responses. Where Vex seethed with defiance, Kalos had spent the battle observing, learning, and now he understood. "This is over," Kalos said at last. His voice was quiet, yet it carried through the bridge like a death knell. "We have lost." Vex turned on him, eyes wild. Weakened still. Kalos looked at him, and for the first time, there was no authority in the general's gaze. Only desperation. "We are not fighting an enemy, General," Kalos continued. "We are fighting inevitability." Vex's mouth opened, then closed. His hands clenched at his sides, shaking with rage, with helplessness. Then, across the holomap, a new signal appeared. A single message, transmitted from the human flagship. "Leave now. Do not return. No threats. No conditions. Just a simple truth." Vex trembled. His empire, his fleet, his legacy, reduced to a single choice. Leave or die. Kalos exhaled and turned to the bridge crew. "Issue the retreat order." No one spoke. No one argued, because the remnants of the Dominion fleet limped away from Omega 9, their once proud armada reduced to a scattering of battered survivors. The retreat was silent, the void swallowing their humiliation. No pursuit came, no final blow. The humans had made their point without unnecessary slaughter. They had left the Dominion to carry its own shame. On the bridge of Imperator's Wrath, General Tyron Vex stood rigid, his jaw clenched so tightly it ached. His hands trembled at his sides, rage warring with disbelief. It was over. Lord Admiral Kalos sat in quiet contemplation, gazing at the ruined fleet displayed on the holomap. He had fought wars for centuries, had seen victories and defeats alike, but nothing had prepared him for this. The humans had done what no species had ever dared. They had shattered the illusion of Dominion supremacy. How did this happen? Vex's voice was hoarse, stripped of its usual arrogance. "We were stronger. We had numbers, firepower." Kalos turned to him, his golden eyes unreadable. "And yet we lost." Vex's fists,